You want to say, like, welcome back or something? You don't want to
Just
say
thinking
anything?
about what a pleasant conversation that was for Maria first thing in the morning.
What?
The plague.
Good morning.
The bowl.
Yeah, you know this is going to make it onto the video because I'm just going to put, like, a little split in there.
It's nothing like a good morning sepsis.
What? This? You're going to... Nope, too late. Don't run away now. All right, so anyway, all right, now. So, welcome back again, all right? So, thank y'all for helping me, like, trap my mom on video. She's like an elusive animal. It's like crocodile hunter, you know what I mean? Like, oh, Mrs. Terry, like, the mother of Mr. Terry, seen in the wild. She's ornery this morning. All right, so anyway, getting into it, let's talk about how the plague affected society in generality anyway. All right, so the plague's biggest effect can be seen on what the public believed medical cures for it were, and it's very defining of the Middle Ages because none of them are actually backed by science. All right, so some of your famous, like, popular cures, of course, the one you know of the most is the fantastic plague doctor costumes, which actually we believe when we look at historical documents that has only been seen in like 3 countries. So it actually wasn't even as big of a deal or as a prolific thing as we like to believe. But it did make it onto the live-action Disney movie and Beauty and the Beast, which is actually kind of cool. Now, a big, more popular ones, though, were things like bathing in human urine, wearing around excrement. That's duty. All right, so placing dead animals in your house to ward off these evil spirits. Leeching, which we find out later becomes even more popular in Europe and is actually good for getting rid of blood clots, but that's about where that all stops. Bloodletting was another big thing. Write this one down, too. Lancing your bulbous, all right? So lancing your bulbous is where they would actually take like a scalpel and cut into it to try and relieve all that pressure and that pus and stuff. But there's also plague bacteria inside of those fluids, usually giving the person who lanced your bulbous the plague, right? So drinking molten gold was a big one, which I've always heard. I don't really think that's plausible because wouldn't you be dead if you're drinking molten gold? Right? Like, I mean, I don't think it makes any sense. All right, so powdered emeralds was a big one, which, again, I don't know if that's very plausible, but people like to say that it happened. And then burning incense to get rid of the smell of the dead. Well, fun fact, one of the popes actually avoided the plague because of burning stuff, but we're not going to get into that right now. But these are popular, crazy, believed medical cures, and none of these actually worked. Maybe with the exception of leeching, but like I said, that was for, like, blood clots and stuff. Now, the biggest effects of the plague are going to be on faith, the economy, and the culture itself of Europe. All right? So what I need you to do right now is write these 3 things. We're going to go ahead and knock out the economy section right now because I'm going to talk about it a little bit more when we get to the Renaissance. But here's the big thing. Your immediate reaction about how the plague would affect the economy is that it would actually hinder it, right? It would actually destroy it. What we are noticing more and more when we study the late Middle Ages, the death, destruction, and disease of the late Middle Ages actually made a stronger economy of the surviving people, all right? The competition was smaller, it was more narrow, it was a lot easier to make money because there wasn't as many people running around, right? So, and some of you are like, well, there's not as many people running around, who's buying all the stuff? What I mean by not as many people running around, you're not competing with as many people to make a product which someone will buy, all right? So your competition market is smaller, all right? So also, though, what you need to write about the economy is it actually kind of in the long run, like, helped. I'm not advocating for the plague. I'm not saying we need a plague to boost our economy. I'm just saying that's what we believe happened, all right? So now, it also is going to undermine faith in religion. Now, I know this is a really terrible way to say this, but what I'm saying is it undermines traditional faith structures, right? Including that of, is this a curse from God? Why is he not punishing the Jews? Like, and it undermined the structure and the solidarity of faith in Europe, all right? So, because as we have noticed through going through this whole thing, the Pope remained unaffected, the wealthy cardinals remained unaffected, some local priests died from the plague, but it's kind of showing, it's like, well, why is this cardinal and this priest, like, what makes them a big difference from one another? We're going to talk about something else to do in a minute real quick. And then culture is going to be influenced as well, particularly art and forms of expression. All right, so now, the big one to try and show you the undermined faith in religion was this thing called flagellante, which is self-inflicted penance. This is just kind of a flag to demonstrate how weird people thought about religion following the plague, right? That actually was roaming groups of people that would go around European towns and hurt themselves or inflict pain upon themselves to actually believe to ward off bad sins and to ask for God's forgiveness, all right? So that's flagellante, all right? Now, but that's just like a marquee example of that undermined faith and religion. Then medieval art, the amount of it that was even produced, which was not much at all, but there was some, because St. Thomas Aquinas was running around like 1295 and like promoting like intelligence and stuff. So it's not like everybody was running around like slack-jawed and didn't know how to like draw a cool picture. But what medieval art was produced was usually then kind of took a turn and became very obsessed with death. All right, so like images of skeletons and oncoming death and like the afterlife awaiting you, bring out your dead, right? Like all that stuff, leeching, lancing your bulbous. There we go. But let's talk really quickly about how the plague finally ended. Now, the plague finally ended due to some common sense practices, and then, well, I mean, what sense is really common in the Middle Ages. But the plague's going to finally end due to a lot of different practices, particularly quarantine. Quarantine is where you're actually isolating those people infected away from the uninfected, all right? So moving, that was a big one as well. People who had the means to move would actually move out to rural areas for a short time away from crowded cities. This is typically your wealthy and other higher-end landowning classes, which actually had a very good job avoiding the plague. Isn't that how weird that works? Now, the hygiene aspect, too, people are going to be promoting the ideas of staying cleaner. Clean air, which is a big one. There was actually the Pope at the time when he was practicing his anointing of the sick. They believed that he stayed immune from the plague because he had two large fires that were burning next to him at all times, which probably would consume and destroy any airborne bacteria, right? So travel and migration is going to finally slow down, causing the stifling of the plague because it needed to be able to move. And then also periods without war, even though the plague actually happened during the middle of the 100 Years' War. Like once you actually call that peace for a little while, maybe, it'll slow down. So 25, we don't know. We don't know this number for sure. But we believe 25 to about 30 million people in Europe all died from this disease, right? Now, that's close to half the people in Europe dead, right? We believe that 443 million total world population people probably died from it. And, no, that number makes no sense. Just put 22% of the world population. We believe about 1 out of every 3 people in the world died from this terrible disease, right? So the other big thing that it's going to do, though, as well, is the death began a dramatic persecution of the Jewish communities in Europe, right? They were blamed for spreading the plague and apparently putting the death into wells of towns because their ability to actually stay away from it, all right? So a lot of this, of course, is not fantastic or unusual when we talked about the persecution of the Jewish people during the Crusades, right? So, there's a lot of different times that this has happened. So, anyway, now, that's where we're going to wrap it up, though. That's the plague in Europe. Just to give you a heads up, this was 2 flips. Now what I'm going to be doing is sending an email out to all of you with the quizzes that I made. I know. I told some of you you're going to be able to help me, but it just turned out that I had a lot of time to get it done, and I just banged it out real quick, all right? It's good stuff. Now, everyone has to do the quizzes at least once to get your quiz review grade for over the break. If you do it 1 time, you get the grade, right? However, I will give you a double 100 quiz grade for any quiz you want to use it to replace all the way up until midterms. Yeah, that's right. All right, so if you are on the leaderboard, if you win the competition and complete it with the highest accuracy, the fastest, then you'll get 2. All right, deal? But I'm going to be sending all that information out in an email. So you have to take that one quiz. It's about 65 questions long, and you do it on your phone. Okay, and it's all multiple choice, and it's meant to be fast. Each question's only going to last on the screen for about 30 seconds. All right, so literally you're supposed to be able to do this in a half an hour. Sound good? All right. I hope y'all have a great rest of your break. I hope you have a happy new year, and I will see you guys on the 2nd. So y'all have a great one. See y'all later.